Okay. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Zindika Kamausi. I am the host of the Thursday Night Book Club. So welcome to those of you who are attending this evening, the Thursday Night Book Club. And it's a big welcome back for all of us, really, for this year's program. This is the first event for 2024 in terms of the Thursday Night Book Club. So yeah, so we're back, really. And I must say as well that I know we're in February, and but I always think it's not long gone past the new year, and New Year always appears. It can be a challenge, but New Year, whenever there's a new year, it can also, of course, be opportunity. So for those of you who are here, I'd like to say I hope that you are stepping up and meeting those opportunities and challenges and making good progress this year. Yeah, all the best for this year, really, with that. And of course, we're here as well, with our new program for 2024. And we have a special guest this evening, and that person is Dr. Erica Mcinnis, who is kicking off this new program for this year. And she's ready to go. Don't worry, she's ready to go. Yeah. So, hi, Erica. I will introduce you in a bit, but hi, just say hi.
Hello, hi.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we'll welcome Erica again in a short while. But before she starts her talk, we always like to start the Thursday Night Book Club with an opening meditation to gather our thoughts and settle into the space so that we are open to receiving knowledge, information, sharing, caring, etc. And we also close with a very brief somatic practice with the breath this evening. So that's how it's going to go. We're going to start with the meditation, then we'll have the interview conversation with Erica, and then we'll close with also a brief somatic practice. So I'm going to be starting with the meditation, and then when I introduce Erica as well, she can expand on, on telling you a little bit more about herself. So that's all good. So I'm just going to share the screen again, and then just have a little background music happening as I do this opening meditation. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so as I said, we're going to just start with a brief opening meditation. So, as we start this meditation, let's just settle into the breath. That's one way of bringing ourselves back here. And there's someone coming in. I'll just allow them in. Yeah. So we're just going to settle into this meditation. Just settle into the breath. So breathe in and out with the nostrils. And that just brings us here and now and nowhere else, so that we are actually here. And anything else, you don't need to know about that right now, except to be here in this present moment, which is the most important time, this present moment. Yeah. So just taking 3 breaths. I would like you to take in 3 breaths. And each time you take a breath in, I'm not going to tell you how, but just taking a nice slow breath in and out. And each time you take a breath in, you mention the word calm. So that's you saying that to yourself, calm. You just bring in calm. So let's take in breath 1, in and out, and just be thinking calm, the word calm. And take in another breath 2. And just be thinking and uttering that word to yourself, calm. And let's take in breath 3. And let's be saying the word calm to ourselves. And just see how that feels in the body as you utter those words, calm to yourself, calm. And let's move on and let's take in a breath and these words to yourself, peace. The word now is peace. Breathe in and out, peace. Now the breath in, peace. Third breath in, peace. Again, just see how that feels in the body, how it feels within. And let's just breathe in and out. And let's take in another 3 breaths. So let's take in breath 1 again. And this time, just be thinking on the word, relax. Another breath in, relax. And another breath in, the word relax. Again, just see how that feels in the body. Feel the sensations within the body when you use and think those words. Breathing in and out. And as you breathe in and out at your own pace, let's just invite in the light of calm, the light of peace and relaxation. And think, what does that feel like? What does it feel like? Calm, peace, and relaxation. And just allow all the tension, any mind chatter to calm down, to disperse, and just to disappear right now while we're here. And just breathe in again and just do a slight sigh out. Another breath in. And another breath in and okay. Well done. And just bring yourself back now, coming back to the breath, coming back to the body, and coming back to the space and to here and now within this space. Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on swiftly, just checking if anyone else is waiting to come in. So let's, we're going to welcome back Erica. Now, before I introduce Erica, I say I met Erica last year during the MNPC, Mindfulness Network for People of Color, the online empowerment retreat in November. That was last year, 2023. And that's when I first met Erica because she was doing some presentations there. And I remember her presentation and I was like, wow, that's really great, you know. I really loved her presentation. So let's just introduce just briefly in what Erica has said in her biography, briefly, and then she'll come on. Okay, so Erica, Dr. Erica Mcinnis is a chartered clinical psychologist in the UK, and she's the founder, director, and principal clinical psychologist for Nubian Wellness and Healing. Now, that's Erica's very own business. And as I said, she was also the keynote speaker for on African-centered approaches to mindfulness and meditation during for the Mindfulness Network for People of Color in 2023. And she also developed and published an African-centered mindfulness series for the meditation app Mind Lab in 2022. She has publications in several peer reviews, journals, and book chapters. She has over 22 years of NHS experience and services, and she does lecturing as well. Wow. Okay. So Erica, she said here before she comes on, Erica says she was inspired by African psychology when she found it provided her strategies to rest, resist, and persist trauma-lived experiences in the global system that is white. We know that. So what she's saying really is we're all submerged within this systematic thinking which is white. So how do we deal with it? So Erica says we need to be able to rest, resist, and persist. How can we do that? I would love to start off by asking you, Erica, what is African psychology and how it links to African spirituality?
Okay, thank you for that introduction. When it comes to what's African psychology, it's applying the best of African culture, practice, and well-being to people. Well, it fits the experiences of people of African ancestry, but just like Eurocentric psychology can be applied to everybody, so can African psychology be applied to everybody. Eurocentric psychology, it really takes its origins from the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, the people like Aristotle, kind of like those sorts of Greek philosophers and Roman philosophers. Whereas African psychology, you're going back further to the ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians, many of the early and the later dynasties were people who were black. Yeah, who came from deeper in Africa to Egypt, and they came with their culture. And then even across different parts of Africa, there's culture, things that people did to keep themselves well before enslavement, during enslavement, and after enslavement. So how do we use the best of those cultures in our wellness? So, oh, you asked me about spirituality as well. Yeah. The way I like to do things is I like to be kind of like multimedia. So as well as talking, some people find that they engage like with a presentation, visuals as well. So is it okay if I share my screen and share some visuals?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay. So if I share my screen, so here, if I go to what you've asked me in terms of, you said African spirituality.
Yeah, how it connects with psychology and spirituality.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, well, spirituality is kind of like the process of being in spirit, yeah? But here are things that I call spirituality from a Western perspective, yeah? So it's energy, your purpose, your relationship with yourself, being in flow. You'd say somebody's in spirit when they're in flow with something, it's just coming naturally to them. The essence of a person can be their spirit, their destiny, their spirit takes them to their destiny. Relationship with a higher power or creator. So for some people, that may be God, it may be Buddha, it may be Allah. Relationship with others, having a mission, knowing yourself. Duppy, a ghost, my friend's from Jamaica. So ghost can be a form of spirit. The ancestor, the spirits of the ancestors, think about the spirit being things that guide you. The vibe in a room, the energy can be the spirit. Sometimes a meeting can take spirit when people get energy, get energized, get excited, and the actual meeting starts to become productive. Spirit can be having a moment of peace or calm or clarity. And there's certain things that we can do to get ourselves into having a spiritual experience, such as mindfulness, meditation. Some people go and visit somewhere, and that's where they then get that spiritual moment. Some people, it can be when they reflect and they get to a certain point in their life, they become more spiritual. Um, um, so they're what I call spirits, yeah. And I'm going to take you onto a slide which talks about culture, which will then take us to then what I'm talking about when I say African spirituality. So culture, this is a definition by Dr. Wade Nobles. And he talks about culture being a process that reflects the vast structure of behaviours, ideas, attitudes, values, habits, beliefs, customs, language, rituals, and practices that give a people a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. So what it's really saying is that we interpret things through our culture. Yeah. So cultures have a guiding set of principles, you do and you don't, which may be, how whether you wash your chicken before you put it in the oven or not, whether you season it or not, the guiding principles for your culture. The assumptions, certain things that just are given, yeah. So it may be given respect for elders, for example, maybe a given assumption in particular cultures, conventions, how things are done, beliefs and rules, and it determines how members of a group relate to each other and develop their creative potential. So back to what I said about the chicken, your culture is how do you season your chicken, or whether it's chicken or whether it's tofu. If you're an ITIL person, it may not be chicken that you eat, it may be vegetables. How do you traditionally prepare your rice? If people mention the word rice, what comes to mind? Does boiled rice, white rice, rice and peas, jollof rice, plain rice, jasmine rice, yeah, pilau rice. Your culture determines how you see things. And it then comes to how do we process spirituality through our culture. So I'm going to do a meditation for you, and I'm going to ask you whether you think that this is being processed through my culture. So I shall just go back to it. Okay. Okay. So you should be able to hear this. Tell me if you can't.
Spaces for the silence, and the things I need to say. Places for the victory, and the pockets of pain. For the revelations, and what questions remain. I'm learning to breathe and hold the space. Oh, spaces for the silence, and the things I need to say. Places for the victory, and the pockets of pain. For the revelations, and what questions remain. I'm learning to breathe and hold the space. Yeah, I'm learning to breathe and hold the space.
So do you see what I mean in terms of processing things through your culture and how applying an African-centered perspective led that meditation to somewhere different? I don't know if any of the people who are live on the call want to comment on that, whether they could feel the presence of Africa in that meditation. Yeah, Nisa, yeah? Okay. So, so what is so if we're thinking about spirituality, yeah, and if we're thinking of it from a an African-centered perspective, yeah, we'd be thinking about things such as eldership. Oh, somebody's in the chat. What somebody's put there? Oh, it was brief but empowering. That's good. Yes, yeah. So if we're bringing kind of like African spirituality, yeah, into the mix, you've got the eldership process. So the eldership process isn't just that you get older in years, yeah. You get older in years, but also you become more mature, you become more the spirit of Ubuntu in terms of thinking of the village, thinking of other people, thinking of leaving a legacy for others to follow, others to inherit, whether it be your knowledge, your wisdom. So it's not about accumulating for yourself, it's about accumulating for the tribe, for the village, for others, even you're the next generation. And that eldership process of becoming a good ancestor, and what can you do that is, if you die tomorrow, you would feel that you have achieved something, and achieved something not just for yourself but others. Yeah. African spirit involves things like dancing and drumming. You could hear the beat in that music. Yeah. And sometimes that comes out in carnival. It can come out in the music, a sense of excitement, self-determined liberation. Yeah. So it's about how do we do things that is about for us, by us. So one of the things he talks about is that me developing my own company. I'm a follower of Marcus Garvey, and the natural process of that is that you get to the point where, yes, I've worked for other people, but I'm also got my own business. I'm self-determined, so I can choose to do things that I feel puts into practice these things that I believe in. Rituals that we do, freedom, having joy. Yeah. If you've got African spirituality, you've got a sense of joy in what you're doing and continuing the good works of the ancestors. And some people follow a religion to put their spirituality into practice, whereas other people, they can put their spirituality in practice by doing things that are more in keeping with how they want to do things. Cooking can be a way of being in spirit, yes, and being a way of kind of like passing on wisdom in terms of a lot of the herbs and spices have been found to have, medicinal products. The breath, the ancient Egyptians called it the ba, yeah, the breath of life, yeah, and having the maroon within. The maroon within is it kind of like it's about the difference between the people that were enslaved and were freed and just went around saying that, well, I'm free, but the maroons were the ones who had a purpose with their freedom, yeah, and what they could use their freedom for. So it's about being purposeful. So if I go to the next slide, and then I'll the next two slides, and then I'll give a break that you can maybe say something if you want to. So back to this question of African spirituality. Dr. Wade Nobles, he calls it spiritness, to say that you embody it and you become spirit, you become energy. Yeah. So he says that spiritness pertains to the condition of being a spirit, being energy or power. When the person and or community experiences congruity between the super, the inter, and the inner realms of spiritness, then the sense of human integrity is achieved. It's only when one has a sense of their own human integrity that one has the instinct to resist dehumanization or oppression, as well as the capability to even contemplate, let alone achieving human liberation, freedom, and believing in the certainty of victory. And as Black people, we face a lot of oppression on a day-to-day basis. You talked about that. And it's about how do we become in spirit, yeah? From a Western point of view, you're probably humans and you have an occasional spiritual experience, perhaps when you go somewhere like Lourdes or to ancient Egypt or to Mecca. But when you have worked from an African-centered perspective, it's like you become a spiritual being, occasionally having a physical experience, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you become spirit, and spirit takes anything that you do. Yeah. So when you become spirited, you can do anything. You feel a sense of power, self-esteem, self-efficacy, grit, and you feel the energy to try and do something. Yeah. And your fallback position becomes, if anything, when I get stuck, my ancestors will carry me there. So it's when you've got kind of like a definite mission about something, like what they call in Western psychology, grit. Yeah, you've got that grit, that passion, that determination to be able to do things, and that's when you're becoming in spirit. So I don't know whether I should wait a minute. I'll leave it at that, and then is there anything that you want to say before?
No, I just had a question connected to the ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of African spirituality, I do think of ancestral practices and worship. And how would somebody, if I said that to somebody, oh, you need to connect to your ancestors, they may ask, well, how do I do that? How do I connect to my ancestors? So what kind of advice would you give to somebody who said they needed to do that, but they're not sure how to do it? What would
Well, I think there's many ways in which we connect to our ancestors, and we don't always realize when we're doing it. So sometimes even in cooking, if we think of where some of our recipes come from, that can be you can see that. In cooking, where do our recipes come from? That's sometimes carrying on the ancestors, the way the ancestors did it. That's what we're doing. Sometimes it's when we have proverbs and sayings, that's how we're kind of like connecting to our ancestors. That's their wisdom and little snippets of sayings and words that we're passing on. When it comes to our values, that can be passing on, and continuing the work of the ancestors. In the way that we dance, in the way that the music that we may listen to, it becomes a process where we become our ancestors and we're doing the work of the ancestors, with our own twist to it.
Yes, yeah. Well, definitely the musical connection, yeah. It's
Yeah.
you can hear that a lot, but you've now made that connection with lots of other everyday things that we do, like cooking or even things, the way we dress or, certain things like that. So, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Okay. So, I was thinking as well, I wish I had, I do a lot for myself now. I'm not full time in the workplace anymore, but I do understand what you mean, about, that idea that we're submerged in this whole culture of whiteness, and that we have to find ways in which we can deal with that and resist it, so it doesn't have that sort of negative impact on us. So what again advice would you give to people of color who are going through that experience, particularly if they're in the workplace, and also particularly those who may be suffering from mental stress,
Yeah.
how
Well,
how these practices can help them.
yeah. Well, it's like a repeater. Here's one I prepared earlier. Here's one about spiritual sickness. Yeah. And it makes you think that, to what extent can capitalism make us spiritually sick? This idea that sometimes we're striving to be better than the Joneses, or to accumulate things that we don't necessarily need. Yeah. Can that make us feel spiritually sick? Yeah. Can the system that we're in interrupts our ancestral destiny at times? So sometimes we're doing what pays the bills rather than following our spirit and what gives us joy, what makes us happy. And sometimes it's about how do you balance it up a bit more, or at times you may need to go through chapters in your life when you're doing more of the spiritual stuff to prevent spiritual sickness. And then you've got the energy to be able to go back into a space that isn't fulfilling, that isn't warmth to you, and you can be there. But sometimes what can help you cope there is being able to connect with people who are like-minded, people who can then, when you explain what's going on, they can empathize as well as sympathize. And I'm just wondering whether I put on the next page. Back to what can we do to help ourselves stay well. I'm going to do another breathing exercise and invite people to join in. So what I'm also going to do is introduce a system of the tools that I'm thinking, what can people do from an African-centered perspective to maintain their wellness? So one of the things here is that I put together an African-centered wellness journal. If we think of the ancient Egyptians, they wrote everywhere that they could. They wrote in tombs, on papyrus, on the walls. They wrote in the temples, on the pyramids, anywhere they could. I've been to museums and seen, even I went to Liverpool Museum the other day, and inside the actual coffin, there were inscriptions. So no culture of people does so much writing unless they're enjoying doing it and they think it's actually a benefit to them. Yeah. So if we're thinking that our ancestors did all that journaling and writing, and if you think of what the ancient Egyptians did in terms of building the pyramids, the Sphinx, scientists even nowadays can't work out how these people did it, yeah, and can't replicate it, yeah. Journaling is very good. And then we've actually seen that there's been studies that have said that when people do journaling, which can be like keeping a diary or like a brain dump, you just write on the page what comes into your mind. I do morning pages, which is inspired by the work of Julia Cameron, where you just write 3 pages each morning of just what comes into your mind. So you've got here, and what I've done is to make it African-centered. I've put quotes from people of African ancestry, different quotes at the bottom of each page. So that's getting inspired by your own culture. And it's in chapters. So the first chapter is Only God is Better Than You, or the universe. The second chapter is Ekofina, courage. The third chapter is Aya, endurance and resourcefulness. The fourth chapter is Ase Ujuro, Divinity of Mother Earth. The fifth chapter is Service and Leadership. The sixth chapter is Excellence. And the seventh chapter is Akoben, a call to action. And then you've also got worksheets at the back of the journal as well, to kind of like what are your wins for the day, or to gratitude lists, in terms of wiring the brain to look for the positives, because we're wired sometimes to look for the negatives, and that doesn't always help. And you've got soulful colouring in there. And then you've also got some pages which are prompt pages, where they've got activities to do. So, for example, that one is inspired by Thomas Sankara, and that one says, knowledge is not enough to change the condition of Black people. Understand we need to create programs and systems that will empower us economically, spiritually, and mentally. We need courage and action. And then the prompt question is, what is your courageous action? So you can get this African-centered wellness journal. You can get it from Etsy, eBay, or my own website that you've got there. And then also, I just mentioned one more thing. We've got Know Thyself Adinkra cards. I mentioned some of these are the Adinkra symbols. So that's the one for universe. That one's for commitment and trying hard. That one's for energy. And people can use these as journal prompts, or as prompts if you're doing group work with people. Put them on the chairs and you can ask people to pick up the card and talk to the person next to them about what it means to them. And Adinkra symbols, they originate from West Africa, the Akan and the Ashanti people, who are traditionally found around the Ghana region, but also anywhere that they've travelled to. And in this deck of cards, you've got 50 of the cards here, and you can use them even for personal reflection. Yeah, to say that, have I transformed, over the past, have I grown over the past few months? Yeah, how am I learning from the past? What is justice to me? You can journal on them. And again, you can get these from Amazon, Etsy, eBay, and my own website. So these are tools to be able to work from an African-centered and put this wellness into practice. And the last thing I will mention on this, when it comes to what can help to keep us well, there's some resources that I've created, such as the post-pandemic planning workbook, and that's got lots of worksheets, African-centered worksheets, from an African-centered point of view. putting into practice how we do wellness. And also there's some online courses that are on my website there that people can engage in to, put African psychology into practice as a wellness tool.
Wow, you've been very busy, Erica. That's great. So many tools. Now, these tools are, of course, can be used as self-help tools.
Mm-hmm.
But would you say, if somebody's really suffering and struggling, what stage would you recommend that they move into working with a therapist?
Well, I think there's two sides to this. One is that these sorts of things are about general wellness. So these sorts of things are how do we prevent people from becoming unwell? I'm inspired by there's a quote by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who talks about, us always pulling people out of the water. And at one point, we've got to go upstream and find out why do people keep falling in the water in the first place, or prevent people from falling in the water. So these are tools to keep ourselves well, to prevent us getting caught up into the spiritual sickness or it taking hold as much as it can. But of course, there's going to be a time when people know that they need professional support. And it's about, sometimes people need professional support from an African-centered perspective, somebody who actually understands their experiences and can help them with tools that, that's the thing about culture, that makes sense to them, that is easy to access for them, that resonates with their chakras, as opposed to something that you'd be thinking, I can see how it relates to you, but I can't see how it relates to me.
Yes, of course. Great. Yes, of course. That saying, prevention is better than cure always.
Yeah.
But
But
nowadays, with
times
so
when
much
people
happening, and so much stress as well that's out there that's surrounding us, we also, in order to prevent, we do also need professional and therapeutic help as well, just to get into that whole process of preventing, people do need that help. So I'm going to ask in a minute if anyone who's present wants to ask you a couple of questions, Erica, before we actually close and leave some space for a little bit of networking and connection. Yes, so is there anyone who would like to ask a question of Erica or comment or share anything? You can just turn your mic on and speak, or...
Well, hello.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Erica. Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation. And I must say it's weird because from the beginning of this year, when you mentioned that that spirit from the ancestors can like come to you and call you in the form of like self-determination as well as wanting to leave a legacy. Because I'm originally from Africa and I came here about 20 years ago. And my thoughts were initially I'm going to stay here forever. And then I sometimes speak to some of my friends who are still over in South Africa, and they keep saying, "Oh, you don't come back. I mean, it's a mess over here. Political system still a mess, and you're better off where you are." But it's weird. I've just been thinking a lot about coming back and making a difference over there, because I'm just thinking and ever since I've been thinking like that, I just become so happier. And it's like this purpose what I really, really want to do. That's my calling. I want to go back there, and I don't care what's going on around me politically or economically. I want to make a difference amongst people. And so it's true what you said, they said calling it to Mindfulness makes you,
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And also we've got to think, what are we doing giving the best years of our lives to bettering another community that sometimes doesn't respect us for doing it? And and it may be about, do we have chapters? We're given a chapter, you're given 20 years to this country. Is now the time for your chapter where you give something back home? And if we're saying that back home sometimes things are a mess, is it because we're here that there's sometimes a mess? Because we're not there actually putting, tilling the soil and making it better?
Yes, very true. And because one of my other friends I spoke to just maybe 2 days ago, when I mentioned that to her, because I told a few other people back then, but she was like, no. and she's the most negative. But as I was explaining to her, like what I really want to do, it's like her eyes also opened, and all of a sudden she's also now seeing like positive things around her that's over there, because she just saw negative. But then I started mentioning some of the things that I want to do when I come over there. And she said, yeah, this home is home, yes, and you can do this. And she's now all of a sudden now also excited and starting to see good things over there as well. Whereas I think before she was just focused on the badness. So you are
But you
right.
get your energy from, yeah.
Energy, that's right.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
And
Can I do a quick meditation on that? You just inspired me, and is it okay if I just
do you want
share?
to close? Do you want to do a closing meditation? That might be better because that's in terms of time, and then we can.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Erica will do the closing meditation to close the session, and then we'll stop the recording. So yeah, thank you for your question and your comments, Vita, and of course thank you, Erica, for coming in this evening. And giving us and informing us in such a brilliant way about so many things that we all need to know about, really, and it's very inspiring. And that's as I was saying earlier, I just wish I had all of this knowledge when I was in the workplace. When I see all these tools that you have, I think, wow, I wish I had all of that, and I wish I knew all about that. And I can see in which lots of ways in which those tools that you have can be used a lot by presenters, facilitators, teachers in the workplace, So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Really appreciate you coming in and sharing with us this evening. And thank you for also agreeing to do. Thank you for your PowerPoints as well. Really great images. And thank you for agreeing to do the closing meditation. When you're ready.
Yeah, so there's two that I'm going to do. So if I share the first one, let's see if I can find it with ease. Yeah, this one. I have everything I need. I am who I want to be. I am who I want to be. I have everything I need. I am who I want to be. I am who I want to be. I have everything I need. I am who I want to be. I am who I want to be. I have everything I need. I am who I want to be. I am who I want to be. I have everything I need. I am who I want to be. I am who I want to be. I have everything I need. I am who I want to be. I am who I want to be. Okay. And I like to add a bit of theory with that. Oh, okay, I may need to just share the presentation. If I just go back a few slides just to the kind of like the theory of why we do the meditation. I mean, our ancestors have done this for years, but what we found out is that the sympathetic nervous system, the stress system, got us to be here today, gets us to do things, get up and go. When we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the calming system of the body, we can think clearer, we can focus better, we can take in information, we can be more productive. The human body wasn't meant to have cortisol going around it all the time. Cortisol is a chemical, a stress chemical, but it's meant to be kind of like in terms of action, and then you get a chance to rest, to replenish. But quite often as Black people, we've got one stress and one trauma after another trauma, or many stresses coexisting. We don't get a rest from it. So our nervous system doesn't get a chance to rest. So sometimes we've got to actually do things ourselves to be able to take a rest that we can actually recuperate and have our energy. A bit like you plug in your battery on your phone goes down and you plug it in to get recharged again. So sometimes meditation can be a recharging of the brain or the spirit or our energy. And the other thing that's important is that they found, like, if you think of it from a cognitive behavioral point of view, people sometimes have negative automatic thoughts, particularly if they go into a low mood or they become anxious. It's because we have anxious thoughts going around on our head. But if anxious thoughts can make you anxious, and if negative thoughts can make you depressed, then positive thoughts, such as the mantra, if you listen to the music I just played, that can be part of rewiring our brains, yeah, so that it's easier to then see the good that's in the world, that it's then easier to be able to pick ourselves up and try again, that it's easier to be able to then, when we're in a moment of rest, our top 10 tunes be something that is inspiring and helps us to resist, persist, and excel, as opposed to something that makes us worry about the next thing, or worry about, if you've got a moment to that, is there something I've forgotten to do? And never really being at peace. So in terms of finishing off for today, I'm going to say a meditation when I get to it. Here, so it's breathe, yes? So you may choose to close your eyes. What I do is when I'm doing a meditation, I get some albus oil or some kind of like some sort of fragrance, because I find that helps me to breathe more deeply when I'm inhaling the actual aroma as well. So you may want to close your eyes and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and B is for believe that you can transcend and overcome any situation, as this too shall pass. R is for run, but if you can't run, walk. And if you can't walk, crawl. Whatever you do, keep moving at your pace to where you need to be. E is for expect, to expect the worst, but hope for the best, so you are prepared. A is for accept challenges, as rough seas make strong sailors. T is for trust in yourself, as a lot was done to make us not trust ourselves, but we are teachable, so you will get there. H is for hang on in there, and E is for excel, as we are the descendants of the survivors of the survivors. So as you bring this short meditation to a close, let us focus on our words and breathe, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. And open your eyes and focus on something around you and your feet on the floor, and be back in the room. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Thanks for that, Erica. Yes. Okay. So we're going to close now, and thank you for bringing your knowledge, your expertise, and your information to help us to show us how we can cope more in this difficult in the culture where sometimes we may feel out of place. So all that you're showing us is just really, really, really important information, and more energy to you as you continue in this work that you're doing, this great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.